Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com.
From Tsunami Sushi in downtown Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christian Mader, editor and publisher of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Hi, I'm Jan Swift, sitting in for Christian Mader. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Hank Williams' 1952 song, Jambalaya On The Bayou, was the first time much of the world heard anything about us. What to most people sounded like Lewis Carroll's nonsense poem, Jabberwocky, the song actually turned out to be a menu of Cajun dishes: jambalaya, crawfish pie, and of course, filet gumbo. Today, if you're from Acadiana and you travel the world, when you've been away from home long enough, you might find yourself tempted to try Cajun food somewhere else. And though you may be in a pretty Parisian bistro or a cool café in Quebec, you feel confident declaring the jambalaya or the gumbo just doesn't taste quite right. Because we invented these dishes, and we set the standard for this kind of cuisine. But what happens when you strip away our home field advantage? When it comes to other types of consumables, how do we stack up here in Acadiana? Let's start with the two most popular and universally consumed human-made libations, coffee and beer. Is it fair to compare Acadiana coffee to, say, Colombian coffee, or the local brew to German beer? Well, if we're going to hold them up to the jambalaya and gumbo standard, they're entitled to hold us up to their beer and coffee standard. Colombia is one of the coffee capitals of the world. So if you live in Abbeville, Louisiana, with a population of around 12,000, you wouldn't expect to get a good cup of fine Colombian coffee, right? Wrong, because one of those 12,000 people in Abbeville is Natalia Hernandez-Schote, who happens to be from Colombia. You can go to Noob 9 Coffee or visit Noob 9 online and get yourself a cup or a gallon of genuine Colombian coffee. You can also get a bag of Natalia's freshly imported Colombian coffee beans. Or you can pick up a bag of Noob 9 beans at a number of select stores across Acadiana. Natalia Hernandez-Schote, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you. Hello.
By and large, here in Acadiana, we like things the way they are. We don't like change. Maybe you grew up in Calcasieu Parish drinking Budweiser, believing it's the king of beers. Well, in that case, your concept of a monarchy might need a little re-education. That was the program Eric Avery found himself embarking on in 2016 when he opened Crying Eagle Brewing Company in Lake Charles. Today, Crying Eagle is a local staple. They have 20 craft beers on tap at their brew pub. They have a bistro, a beer garden, a tap room, and live music most nights. They introduce at least one new beer to the lineup every week, and they have 8 beers for sale in cans. The brewery employs 40 people. And how are they doing on the beer equivalent of the jambalaya and gumbo scale? Pretty darn good. The Independent Craft Brewers Association described Crying Eagle's Divine Imagination Double IPA as a world-class beer of superlative character and flawless execution. Eric Avery, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you very much.
So Natalia, we're going to start with you in the questions, and welcome to both of you. It's a pleasure to be here. Natalia, it's remarkable that you're giving Abbeville access to world-class Colombian coffee. But at the end of the day, Abbeville isn't Seattle, and your coffee company, Noob 9, is not Starbucks. There's only so much that people in Abbeville will pay for a cup of coffee, and there's not a massive population to cater to. But the bureaucracy and expenses involved in importing coffee from Colombia into the U.S. are no different from you than they are for Starbucks. You left your career in architecture to launch this company, so I assume you started Noob 9 with a business plan that makes the numbers work. I have a question. Has the reality of running a Colombian coffee import company in Abbeville turned out how you mapped it out in your business plan?
It has, but also I've learned to just go with the flow. Things change, and I just have to embrace those changes. A year ago, we wanted to open a brick and mortar, and that kind of fell through. And instead of, putting our head down and being sad about it, it pivoted to getting a coffee trailer. And then our cold brew happened. There was a reborn of bottling our cold brew, and now it's one of our most popular items. So yes and no. It is what we expected, but I've just grown and learned to just go with the flow.
Right, right. Eric, let's go with you next. Making beer is similar to any other manufacturing business. You're taking a bunch of raw materials and creating a product. But your 40 employees at Crying Eagle Brewing Company are doing a lot more than working an assembly line. You have a tap room, you have a bistro, you have live music most nights of the week, you rent out space for special events, and of course you're brewing and selling beer. As president of the company, do you need to be hands-on in all of the various aspects of the business, or do you rely on other people to run the specialty pieces?
I think it would be naive to say that I could possibly be as hands-on in every single aspect of the company, even though I would like to be. But the truth is that Crying Eagle has done an exceptional job of bringing together a lot of what I call A players. Mm-hmm. Okay, and A players attract other A players, and when you have these types of people that work with you, you don't necessarily need to be as hands-on in every aspect of it. You let them take their talents and proliferate into what they do best. Whereas I stay focused on what I do best, which is going out, marketing the business, looking for growth, opportunities, handling the new construction project that we're doing. I mean, all sorts of things. But yes, I'm still actively involved, but just not in a micromanagement sort of way.
I'm going to stick with you, Eric, for this question. I read with interest that when you had the idea, you had traveled and seen a successful brewery, and you wanted to bring this back home. So you came up with the name, you found out that someone else was trying to take that name, and you ended up partnering. If you can talk about that, how life has a way of working out.
That's right. So I spent, one of the great things that I love about craft breweries themselves is just how they incorporate the local culture, and they do that in the forms of the names that they use for their beers, the names of their breweries, maybe even the construction, with the construction type of materials you use in your building, and we did all those things. But I knew that when we were trying to come up with a name for the brewery, that was going to be of paramount importance. And so we went after, I remember going and tossing around countless different names, and I remember coming into one roadblock after another, and the name Crying Eagle just kept coming up. And I knew that I liked that name, but for some reason there was a sticking point to it, and I don't know what that was. But regardless, ended up going with the name because I felt it be very important and very representative of who we are and where we're from. And that was only to find out that there was another brewery in planning in Lake Charles just as we were starting construction. And that proprietor was also planning to name his brewery Crying Eagle. Well,
that wasn't good.
Well, it wasn't good, but I raced off first to get lock down all the trademarks and the names and the websites and all that.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, and I knew that I would eventually fish this person out, whoever it was, and it turned out that this was, I got a call a few weeks later, said, hey, look, I'm looking at starting my own brewery. I'm the guy, and yada, yada. Next thing you know, he ends up becoming my brewmaster at Crying Eagle at our launch.
Right. So you did need other people to help you. You weren't doing it all yourself,
oh, heavens,
even
no.
from the beginning.
This is as Talia will tell you, this is an exceedingly complicated industry in the beverage manufacturing. And I won't really get into all the reasons why, but you just have to take my word for it, that this is not a job, an industry where you can just decide, oh, I want to open a brewery one day and just do it. It takes years of research and mountains of money and sometimes a lot of debt.
Right.
But either way, it's a
She's laughing,
for
yeah.
me, it's it's my passion project. It is my ministry, and I love it.
So Crying Eagle, Calcasieu means Crying Eagle in Native American.
Correct.
Right. So Natalia, the name of your company, Noob 9, has been a work of evolution. So if you want to talk about how you started your company and the inspiration to bite the bullet and do this.
Yes. So we started when my son was born, and it was actually a completely different name. It was Nico Cafe. My son is Nico, and it was just, it felt personal to him. And then we had a daughter, and then she started, talking, and she's like, well, where is my coffee?
I don't have my own
name?
company.
Where's my brand? I was like, ooh, this is going to be hard. After pandemic, when I decided to quit my job, we decided to rebrand. We wanted to redo the bags and rethink of everything, just kind of go blank. And our coffee, our Colombian coffee, just brings us to a different place. It brings me home, takes me to a different place, and that's kind of the inspiration. Nube means cloud in Spanish, so it's cloud 9 coffee. And the hot air balloon, the idea is to elevate yourself to a happy place, to a bliss.
It's beautiful.
Yes, to bring you. And so with the trailer and us being their customer service, to me is so important. So just listening to people and talking to people and getting to know everybody and having a great cup of coffee, because I'm biased, but I love our product.
Right.
I love our coffee.
Right. So you are your own distributor. You make deliveries. And if you want to talk about that, you don't have the 40 employees that Eric has at this point.
That's right.
You're
That's right.
hands-on.
Yes, I hope to grow soon, because it's getting to be a little bit challenging to manage my time.
You still work from your home?
Yes, we work from our home right now. I am very lucky to have a lot of family that helps me. So I have my in-laws helping me. I have my mother. I have my husband.
Do the little people help too?
They love to go to events and help. Sometimes I have to tell them, like, no, this is not the event for you. This is going to be really long. But I hope that when they're older and teenagers, that this is something that they can go and start working and be a part of it. But yes, it's been challenging. Organization and scheduling. Now with the cold brew starting to kind of be a big thing, it has been challenging. We'll see what the next year will bring.
We'll stay with you, Natalia, on the cold brew and your coffee. I'd like you to describe how it tastes, what's different about Colombian coffee.
Yes.
And because a lot of people maybe don't know, we grew up with another brand that was local here.
Yes, and I took it for granted when I was in Colombia. I mean, we grew up since we were little as Cajuns, because our cultures are very, very similar. You go with coffee milk, and our coffee was exceptional to us and the world. Colombian coffee is a very smooth coffee. It's a very bold taste, but it's a very smooth coffee. Our coffee is a specialty coffee, and is grown in the coffee belt region of Colombia. In the future, I hope to expand our line and bring different coffees, because Colombia has different topographies, which means different flavor profiles and everything. The one that we have is an altitude of about 14,450 meters. High. It's a mild climate, but it's all hand selected, as opposed to mass production, where they take the tree and they shake it down, and the berries are picked as they're ripe by people. So it makes it like almost artisanal and special.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Jan Swift, sitting in for Christian Mader. I'm talking with Natalia Hernandez-Choate from Noob 9 Coffee Company in Abbeville, where they import Colombian coffee beans and make authentic Colombian coffee, and Eric Avery from Crying Eagle Brewing Company in Lake Charles, where they have over 20 beers on tap, a bistro, and live music most nights of the week. Eric, I'm curious about you with the beer. Obviously, you didn't grow up as a child having beer, wake you up in the morning, and I'm kidding, but to be 100% immersed in the beer industry is a lot. Did you only drink beer, or was this something you came to later?
This is a bit of a long story, so I'll certainly condense it, but no, I was not much of a drinker, partier, any of that growing up. Certainly didn't know craft beer at that point, because craft beer wasn't a thing when I was growing up. Okay, you had the major domestic brands, and quite frankly, while they have a good product, I just wasn't a fan. So one of the questions I am most asked or asked most often is, how does one get into this industry? And it was really by happenstance. So my LSU roommate and some buddies went to Houston for his bachelor party. He married a little bit later in life, and so we put aside all the debauchery for a cool brewery tour and a great restaurant, sushi restaurant as a matter of fact, and that was my very first exposure to craft beer and a brewery. And I got to tell you, when I walked in there, I was mesmerized by the environment, and if you've been to some really great breweries, I think you can collectively agree that they are just special. There's something magical about them and how they bring people of all walks of life together. And doesn't matter if you are rich, you're poor, you're gay, you're straight, if you make a lot of money or you live paycheck to paycheck. I remember everybody being united over a pint of beer. And it was an experience that I'll never forget, and one that I remember racing home after that weekend and telling my wife, I want to open a brewery.
Yeah.
Because Lake Charles doesn't have one, and I want to bring that experience to my hometown.
And what did her face look like when you told her?
It was emphatically no. But yeah, and I give Jennifer Avery credit. You know, I don't win many arguments at home, but we can obviously see that I won that one. Okay, but it wasn't like the next day we just started building a brewery. It was, I spent 4 years researching, going to breweries all over the country, and because as Natalia will tell you, this is, if you're going to bring something like this that's going to represent you, this represents her heritage, her family, this represents me as well, and my family, and I wanted it to be right, and it took a long time and then eventually we opened our doors in 2016.
You worked with your family business. You both had day jobs. You didn't just leave on a whim to do this. So you both have work you can fall back on. You have your family business. Natalia, I've got to ask, though, an architect, you left your profession. It doesn't have to be forever, but that was a big step. What really was the last thing you were thinking about before you realized, I'm going to do this full time?
It was very hard. Ultimately, I think it was also the flexibility of being able to be with my kids. I had younger kids back then, and it was right after, during pandemic and right after, and so I was with them a little bit, and everybody tells you, make sure you're with them because time flies by, and before you know it, they'll be gone. And so them being part of the coffee and helping us, and it just made sense to just leave that behind. Yes, it is much harder. Yes, I work a whole lot more than just 8 hours a day.
But you can schedule the 8 hours around crisis, let's say, if somebody gets sick or whatever.
That's exactly right.
In theory.
Yes,
in theory.
Yeah.
So, Eric, are y'all looking at expanding this?
Yes.
Did I see that?
Yes, we are. So in 2019, I was awarded what I would consider the development opportunity of a lifetime in Lake Charles. And through a partnership with the City of Lake Charles, I'm building a second location right there at the old Harris Casino property.
Oh, yeah.
On the interstate, on the waterfront, right there as you come into Lake Charles. We just broke ground in January of this year, so a lot of people say, what took so long? Well, there's a lot that happened in between December of 2019 and this year. But yes, it's going to be an incredible new concept that we're doing that's going to continue to keep the Crying Eagle branding. However, they're going to be remarkably different in ways that keeps them both very unique, original to themselves.
My husband's family, I mentioned that to you earlier, the Swifts are from Lake Charles, and I've been amazed at, the magnet for visitors that the casinos are. They're bringing in these great acts, and you'll be right there. I mean, Lake Charles has evolved since I remember visiting there in the 70s. You grew up in Sulphur, but that's been amazing to watch the Lake Charles growth.
That's right. It's been, granted, we've had a lot of setbacks, but, there's just something about Lake Charles and Lafayette, and in fact all of Louisiana. We're very proud state, and we love what we do. We love the culture. We love the food. We love, most importantly, the people. Don't so much like the weather all the time. However, there's just something great about where we are, and to see Lake Charles evolve as briskly as it has over these last couple of years has been a testament to the resiliency of our community, the leadership of our mayor.
And it sounds like they've been very supportive from the city of Lake Charles perspective to let you grow.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, breweries are notoriously known for being very difficult to open, as I referenced earlier. Not just because they're complicated businesses, but also because of the regulatory red tape of dealing with local governments, state governments, and municipalities. And the city of Lake Charles believed in me from the very beginning and made it as seamless to open our brewery and to continue to operate it since the very beginning.
Natalia, I mean, you're in Abbeville. Do you work much with the local government? Do you have to interact with them much, or is it more of a USDA, regulatory?
We do. We've worked. The mayor from Abbeville, Rosalind White, has been incredibly supportive since before she was a mayor, and we started actually with our Nico Café. I remember them trying to get us to be a part of the Giant Omelette Festival, which is a big festival in Abbeville. They cook the big egg in the street, the omelets, and so she's always been behind us. They're very supportive of small businesses, so we've been very lucky in Vermilion Parish and also in Lafayette now that we're moving more towards this market. But yes, everybody has been extremely supportive.
Have you had to learn about the taxes? Do you have an accountant, or do you do all the business in yourself?
Yes,
because you
do
really
everything.
Do. Eric, take notes.
Oh yeah.
I know. I that's something that yes, I soon want to pass. My mother recently moved to the States, and she moved to Louisiana. And that's a job that maybe I have for her to be, our manager and have all the paperwork, because it is challenging to handle all of that. But yes, we have to have all our different taxes depending on which event we go to, which market, which pop-up. So I have everything saved like that.
So where can we find your product, Natalia? What stores, and where can we look for this?
Yes, in Lafayette, we have it at Bonneville Macarons. We've partnered with Heather, and they've been amazing. It's a small business owner, women-owned. She's been very supportive. She carries our bags, brews our coffee, and started also selling our cold brew by the cup. And so in Lafayette, they're soon to open in Drug Emporium. We're talking to them.
Great.
So that would be a great account. And then in Vermilion Parish, we are in a few places. In Abbeville, it was the old Rabis, which is now Champagne's Market.
I was hoping you'd be here at Champagne's maybe one day in the oil
absolutely,
center.
Absolutely. We love them too. So yes, hopefully one day. We are in Erath, in Guidry's Cakes. They're an amazing cake shop, and they sell our bags. We have it at La Marche on 167, Chill House in Maurice. Coffee Dash brews our coffee. She uses our coffee to brew her cold brew and drip. I'm forgetting. Nunus in Youngsville, huge account. They're amazing.
And Eric, for you, it's the opposite. I mean, Natalia will deliver, but we need to come to you. So that's a reason to make a trip to Lake Charles, right?
That's correct. And now, granted, you have to remember, whenever we launched the brewery back in 2016, we were a production and distribution brewery, but during the pandemic, we found it more economical, better for our particular interest to convert into what's called a microbrewery brew pub model, which means that we can have a full bar. So we make our beer, we have wines, beers, cocktails, but as a trade-off, we can no longer distribute our beer, and it must be bought at our brewery.
Right. You both have such fun stories. I have to tell you, a lot of us will think about, I'd love to have my own business, but to actually go through with it, I want to commend you both, because you're doing what you love and you're making our world better. So I just want to commend you on that. And we're about to wrap up. Is there anything that anybody wanted to say quickly that you thought we would ask?
I did wanted to mention something I forgot to tell you. So you said, where could you find our coffee? We are opening our coffee trailer. So it's a little vintage, cute coffee trailer. And so you'll be able to grab it there, and you'll be able to talk to us and experience, our coffee by the cup. And then next year, we're going to be in the new Apothecary building in Lafayette. They have another amazing business. They have been just so good to us. I'm just so happy with the warmth that the small businesses have with other business owners. Everybody wants to help everybody. And so yes, that you'll be able to find us there next year.
Right.
Thank you for having me too.
Well, thank you both. And I just want to say, when someone calls you up and suggests going to get a cup of coffee or a beer, you know they don't mean it literally. They really want to get together with you. But the coffee or the beer are a reason to socialize. The coffee on the table or the beer at the bar or the brewery are far from irrelevant. I'm not sure that anyone's done a study on this, but I think you'll agree it seems like better coffee and better beer make for better conversation and better occasions. So Natalia and Eric, you're not just responsible for producing thirst-quenching liquids. You're contributing to our happiness and enhancing our relationships. Thank you for all of that, and thank you for taking time to join us today on Out to Lunch, Acadiana. Our guests on Out to Lunch, Acadiana today have been Natalia Hernandez Choate, Colombian coffee importer and co-owner of Noob 9 Coffee in Abbeville, and Eric Avery, president of Crying Eagle Brewing Company in Lake Charles. We edited this conversation to fit into our time slot here on KRVS. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Natalia's coffee and Eric's beer by listening to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast. You can find and subscribe on your podcast app and on our website. It's Acadiana.com. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsacadiana.com and on our Out to Lunch Acadiana social media. These photos were taken by Jada Morgan. You can find more of Jada's photos on Instagram at Jada Morgan. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Morell. Our associate producer is Chad Theriault. Our researcher is Leah Urdialis. Today's show was engineered by Dylan Babineau. And I'm Jan Swift, host of the Discover Lafayette podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Christian Mader will be back next week here at Tsunami Sushi for more business Acadiana style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Acadiana was recorded live over lunch at Tsunami Sushi on Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Tsunami is open Tuesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, serving sushi, sashimi, salads, and authentic Japanese grilled dishes. Tsunami welcomes casual dining or reservations. More information at servingsushi.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. If you'd like to be part of Out to Lunch, to learn how your business or organization can become an Out to Lunch program partner, email info@inobroadcasting.com.